Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly, and this is Mr. David Lutz on the other picture that you see. And we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us and spending part of your afternoon with us. We're going to be talking about some really fun stuff today, a really fun topic that David and I love to go deep into. So this 1 hour is probably going to go pretty fast. So I want to let you know that on the top of your panel bar, there is a way that you can interact with us. There's a bubble, like a speech bubble, a box, and it has a question mark in it. If you click on that, you will be able to type a question, submit it, and David and I will monitor this throughout the next hour. So feel free, whatever comes to mind, just feel free to jot that down in that questions panel. And we will be asking you some questions because we would love to have you interact with us. So feel free to use that questions panel to interact with us. And if you've got any questions, just type them in the box. All right. And let's go ahead and get started. David, you want to take it away?
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And as we move on, we do have slides. We typically just have a conversation. That's fine, and we want to keep doing that. But we also want to use a few prompts because we have a lot of ideas that we want to talk to you about today. And so as we move to the next slide, if you can all see that, we want to do a quick review. If you've been joining us for our recent teacher talks, one of the things we've been really trying to focus on are the 3 pillars of instruction with Shurley English. And as you can see, we just have a nice graphic here just to remind you that, as you know, if you're familiar with Shurley English, we always begin at the beginning with jingles. And what the purpose of jingles, basically, it's just the definitions for grammar and a lot of the rules for writing and language arts, and they've been set to a rhythm or some kind of a tone, or they have choreography, but these jingles are basically they stick in the brain, and that's why we teach them. What it helps to do is reduce cognitive load later, because often what happens is we know that we're supposed to review information as we teach it in English class or in math class or in science class. We're supposed to keep reviewing, but it's easy to forget to do it as much as the brain needs it. And so the jingles is an automatic way to make sure that we're guaranteeing that kids get enough practice learning the parts of speech, what they mean, their definition, and how to use them. Then we also went to pillar 2, which was the question and answer flow, because Shirley doesn't do anything by accident. The jingles, that knowledge that you learn in jingles is now transferred into what we call the question and answer flow. It is unique to Shirley English, and it's an oral form of sentence diagramming. And so those of you who are from the old school and you love sentence diagramming, you're still doing that, but now you get to keep the sentence in a linear fashion instead of breaking it apart into pieces. Now, that works for a lot of learners to break it apart and put it on a set of lines, like what happens with the traditional type of sentence diagramming. But when you do the Q&A flow, what's key is we're maintaining comprehension. And the kind of work that kids do with sentences in Shurley English allows for developing prosody, that the flow of reading, the repetition of reading, really getting into deep comprehension. And in the Q&A flow, that's where they're also basically orally parsing the sentence so that they pick out all the different parts of speech and how the role of each word plays out in a sentence. Then we talked about sentence blueprints, which is where the rubber meets the road. You're taking all of this knowledge that has been gained by learning the jingles up front, then utilizing that knowledge in the Q&A flow, and then we apply it to actually composing sentences, and we show kids how to do it. And if you've been tuning in, you probably know this, and if you teach the program, you also know that this can be one of the most dynamic parts of what you do in your writing workshops, in your writing classrooms, because you're not going to leave anything to chance. You're going to make sure the kids do understand the flow of English, how to start a sentence with the core, which is what we always think is going to be essential. And because the kids have been learning all along what the core pattern of a sentence is, it gives them this opportunity to show that variety in their writing as they are working through a sentence blueprint. Now, Kimberly, that's just a quick review. Let's go on to the next slide to kind of jog our memories. we're going to be starting to talk today about novelty, which is why you tuned in. Now, again, we all know that something novel means it's new, right? But let's talk today about how novelty becomes fuel. It's fuel for focus and creativity and retention. Why does that matter? Well, again, as a teacher, you already know that the amount of review and repetition that we're required to run when kids through, you get the glazed look in their eye. You start to realize, are you there? Are you listening? Probably not. After you've done something 3 or 4 times and it's repetitive, and those of you who know Shurley, what happens is we run the risk if we don't pay attention to our audience, and our audience is our kids. If we're not watching to see how they're responding emotionally to it, how they're responding physically to what you're doing, you have to watch to see if they're really staying focused. And most of the time, they really aren't. That's a lot to ask for an attention span. And depending on the grade that you teach, that can be a really, really big problem. You think you're doing everything great and you're teaching all of your information, but you can't necessarily guarantee that it's getting in, can you? And so when we use novelty, we're going to hopefully beef up their ability to stay focused. We're going to hopefully enliven their creativity. And when you do that, retention starts to become optimal. And retention is going to matter so much because we know that memory is the mother of all learning. And if these children have attended to this new information and then it's become maybe, let's say, not the most exciting thing that they've ever gotten to experience in the classroom, now you're going to add something new to it. Or maybe you're just going to change up what's old and make it new again. All right, Kimberly, let's see what's going on next.
And I want to add something to that.
Okay.
Yeah, if you are a teacher of Shurley English, you know that Shurley English is novelty. The way that we approach, we have a saying. The approach that we take is see it, hear it, say it, do it. So Shurley English is already differentiating instruction. So it is novel in and of itself, just as a full English language arts curriculum. So, and you're going to see, we're going to show you how it is novel, and then we're going to show you how to expand it even more. So, do you want to talk about this slide, David?
Yeah, I like this. Dr. John Medina, he is a molecular biologist, and he's also a brain researcher, quite renowned. I believe he comes out of Washington University, at least he works with them. And he just says it so simply, and this is exactly right. Humans don't pay attention to boring things. And it's really true. And now, of course, every person is different, and we would never want to generalize because there are some kids, they truly are brains. They just sit there in that classroom, they soak up everything. It doesn't really matter what you do. They're going to get it. We also have those kids that they don't learn as easily, or they just have a lot of other things in their lives they have to manage. And when they come into your classroom, you owe it to them as their instructor to figure out where they are and then find the best way to get them where you are. And I think it's amazing if we just remember this very important thing. Kids aren't going to listen to us if we're mundane, if we're boring, if we don't do something that makes them go, what? What's going on? I think I need to pay attention to this. Next slide. Humu humu nuku nuku apua a. Now I'm going to get your attention. Now, I want you to pay attention to this for just a moment. First of all, just look at the beautiful word, humu humu nuku nuku apua a. And you know what it is? And you can't just say, it's a fish. Yeah, of course it's a fish, but, well, actually, I could have lied. I could have said, who knows what it is? You know, if you look at the fish, and I was joking with this earlier when I was talking to Kimberly and to our special helper who's somewhere in this cosmic world here. She and Kimberly and I were looking at the face. This face looks pretty bored, but no way would anybody be bored if suddenly you popped up with a word like this. And I'm a word guy, so I love things like this, and I love all the vowels. Look at all the vowels that are in this. I love all the consonants, and I like to pronounce it. when things are getting strange in your classroom, and strange by you're looking at your kids thinking, is any of this getting through? It's time to throw in something like this. Now, it doesn't have to be a picture. It doesn't have to be a fish. Oh, by the way, I'll tell you more about the fish in just a minute. But I want you to understand that sometimes the attention grabber matters. And yes, what we do with Shurley English, it will get your kids' attention. So when we speak about adding novelty into what you're already doing instructionally, you don't necessarily start out with, I guess what I want to say is, you're setting a baseline at the beginning of the year. And we want our kids to be so excited about what we're doing. But when you're teaching Shurley English, it's already, as Kimberly said, it's already novel. It's already pretty exciting. So you don't want to jump into a lot of unique or strange or attention-getting systems until you know that your audience is ready for it. And sometimes it is important to just wait. But we have to kind of squeeze everything into 1 hour. So I'm going to hit you hard with this one. And we'll talk a little bit more about this little fella later. All right, next slide.
I'm going to take over here. So we're going to go through the features of Shurley English and show you some different ways that you can incorporate novelty into some of these features that you're doing on a daily basis. Now, if you've been a teacher of Shurley English for, we'll call you a veteran teacher, you've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, or it's been in your entire school, and so your first graders have had Shurley English, they've been learning it from first grade all the way to 8th grade, they're going to need some novelty because it's through the repetition, that's how they're going to master the concepts. But that doesn't mean you can't bring in some novel ideas to spice it up or jazz it up, as I like to say. So we're going to start with the jingles and how can these jingles, how can we get novel and bring in some novelty with these jingles? Next slide, please. So I'm a right brainer, right? I love to be a little more creative and I love the fun artsy stuff and music. And that's why I love Shurley English, because I'm not asked to sit in a cubicle and just read right out of the book. I need you to spark my attention because I get bored easily. So in Shurley English, as you are introducing jingles, which jingles are already novel, and if they aren't novel, all you need to do, one, is change the rhythm of the jingle. That's the easiest way to make that novel. Or you can start to bring in maybe an artistic flair. And we've got some other things, some blogs and everything that talk about writing is really an art. And so that's how I brought in this little piece of art, because you can take this wherever you want. You can talk about art history. By just bringing in this little painter guy, we can talk about all kinds of things, but we want to talk right now about the parts of speech because that's what the jingles do. They take a different approach to teaching words and academic language that you would just traditionally read right out of the book, right? So we're going to sing a jingle, a song that tells them what a verb is. And then what you can do as a spin-off of that is create a bulletin board or an interactive word wall per se, but the old word walls where it's just word after word after word, that becomes, I think, they just start to blend in with the rest of the wall. And it just becomes, it just is another brick on the wall that I see every day in my classroom, right? So, but if we put splotches of paint here and different colors, maybe get your art teacher involved in this. It could be a lot of fun. So they learn what a verb is, and then you, instead of saying, okay, let's play verb charades, which is another novel idea that you could do that I love to do. Verb charades are fun. Or if you're talking about nouns, everybody, okay, I need everybody to pick one noun in the classroom and then we'll write it on the board. That's fine if you're doing that, but there are ways you can jazz it up. This is just one of the ways. So the next slide will show you adjectives. And so it's the same thing. So a lot of your students, and you'll know this, the more and the longer you teach them, what type of a learner they are. So
Oh, yes.
If they're a visual learner, man, these splotches of paint and that word enormous might really drive home or hit home to one of your students. Spicy, maybe they associate the color burnt orange or orange with spicy. So there's all kinds of different connections in the brain that we might not think of. But you have to remember, these kids are seeing some of these words for the very first time. And so these little things can make a big impact with your students. The next slide will show you what you can do in teaching the parts of speech. Like, I just imagine you could create you could turn your classroom into paint splashes full of grammar. And then what you're doing on the side is, it's not just taking up space in your classroom, because if it's out of sight, oftentimes it's out of mind. So if it's there all the time, the students are associating, I see pronouns, okay, and then all the pronouns are purple, okay, oh, I didn't know that was a pronoun, but I know now, or I didn't know that was a conjunction, I forgot what the conjunctions were, or prepositions, interjections. And notice, I alluded to the fact of color coding. Color coding can be huge, especially with the parts of speech. Okay, and we're going to talk more about color coding as well. So this is just one way that you can create a bulletin board. You can dress up your classroom, make it more colorful. But here's the thing, you don't have to do all of the work. You could even have a copy of like a splash of paint, and let your students color it as homework. Bring it back. We're going to use all of these. You know, depending on your grade level, it can fit. I could see this in every single grade level, 1 through 8. And the words would be different that they would list for adverbs or nouns or prepositions and adjectives maybe. So you can really start to differentiate. It doesn't matter what grade level. You could always throw this in as a different way to bring some novelty into the parts of speech.
Absolutely. Now, Kimberly, I want to piggyback onto this for just a moment, because we've got a question here. What do you do with the kids who unfortunately might be colorblind, or if you're a teacher and you're colorblind? I notice that, and you can address this however you want to, Kimberly, but one of the first thoughts I have about that is, remember, anything that stimulates the senses, and we got 5 of them, and so if the color isn't really going to work for you, then one of the things you might consider, this is just off the top of my head, if you could assign a sound effect. You know, we have technology today where you can create sound effects with all kinds of really cool things to do on your computer, or you can actually bring in physical instruments that make a specific sound, and get your children acquainted with finding another way to think about this. Nouns would have a specific ring. Pronouns might have a specific tone. Verbs might have a specific rhythm or a beat. It would be really exciting to see what you could do with one of the other senses. So this is visual, but why not turn it into something auditory? That's just something I'm thinking about. And Kimberly, if you have any other ideas, so does that help?
One of our participants just said use shapes. I was thinking, because I'm a feeler, use some different feels. You know,
tactile
rock,
is wonderful.
Like bubble wrap. You could use all kinds. I love that. Bring your senses. Get your senses involved.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, next slide. Then we can move into the next feature, because remember, when you're working with Shurley English, we lay the foundation for grammar through parts of speech and jingles, and then all of this starts to build the foundation for writing. So what they learn through jingles, they're now going to apply into diagramming sentences the old way. This is what we call it. It's the 2.0 version. It's called the question and answer flow. And David talked about that. That's one of our pillars of instruction. So next slide, please.
All right. Well, Kimberly, did you want to speak about this, or can I?
Nope, go for it. We've already talked about the color coding. Okay. And I love the scented markers too.
Yeah. And again, you know, you have to be aware if you have children that are overly sensitive to the sense of smell, you don't have to go this far with it. But all I'm asking you to do today is let's think really, really deep into this. What else can you do? So if you have scented markers, that's one way. It's just different, and kids will love it. But remember, the only thing, it's kind of an axiom about color coding. It's a good idea to stick with the same color system. Once you start to, like if you wanted to think about verbs being green or adjectives being orange, or it doesn't really matter. But whatever system you choose for the colors, stick to it so that it doesn't start to get confusing. Novelty doesn't work very well once confusion gets in there. Confusion will literally undermine what the brain has already started to formulate as another system. So be careful about that. However, when you are working at one particular novel approach to the same old thing, just let the sky be the limit. And don't be afraid to try some really, really cool things. Like this next idea, lights out. Love it. You take fluorescent colored paper, and you can tape that to your whiteboard, your drywall. Well, yeah, I guess you could if you have a classroom with drywall. But you want to get it where it's really big, bigger than life. Get it bigger than life, and then you want to use black markers because you want this to show up really, really well. And you would do another Q&A flow, or you might put a sentence, maybe words out of order and then putting them in the right order. But the only thing that really makes this different is now you turn the lights out and you shine a black light on all the work that you have on the paper, with the fluorescent colors. And it is so exciting. Now, just a word of caution. If you're a good manager in your classroom, all of these ideas will just soar, but you have to be a really good manager. If you're not sure that you want to manage some of the chaos that can ensue, and I'm just saying a little chaos. I'm the type of teacher, I want the kids to have a great time, but at the same time, I still want them to understand there are guidelines that we're going to follow in this classroom, and that never changes whether the lights are on or lights are off. It doesn't really matter if we're making colors or we're making noises. We're going to still make this a learning place for everybody, so we're going to hold it together. So be aware that you do have to know novelty can sometimes make you work a lot harder. And that's okay, I think. I think it's absolutely essential. And for me, this is a breath of fresh air as an instructor.
Yes.
It's not just for the kids, because we can get really, really tired of the same old thing day in and day out, right? Yeah, everybody nods your head. Yes. So be aware that as we talk about any of these ideas, you have to know what you need in your classroom, what your kids need, and what you can manage, and what you want to manage, and what you don't want to manage. Our next thought is how's a preposition. So some of you probably know about this. Prepositional phrases, not hard in Shurley English. In fact, it's one of the easiest things that kids kind of pick up very quickly through the Q&A flow. Even when I was working with the youngest learners, first and second graders no less, the house of prepositions was a visual way of helping them understand that prepositions basically are pre-positioned words that help you create more of a setting in every sentence. And it's wonderful because, as you know, well, maybe you don't know, all of us know that we have an adverb test, or a little test we do with words that are adverbs, because adverbs tell how, when, where, why, to what condition, to what extent. Well, there's something really important about them. They're only adverbs until they claim an object. And then once there's an object, now we have a prepositional phrase. So you have a preposition, and then you have the object of the preposition, and the preposition house allows you to create a visual where you might have the picture of a house, and you have arrows that talk about through the door, or over the roof, or under the hedge, or around the fence. And it's just an exciting way to do the same thing we've always been doing. But as you're teaching prepositions and prepositional phrases, and they know the jingles through and through, and they've done all the practice pages, and they're zipping through it so fast that, in fact, your head's spinning, it's time to add novelty. And this is a great way to do it. Also, if you're familiar with Berenstain Bears, there's a great book called Bears in the Night. And that whole book, it's so simple. And I would say, read it to your 8th graders, read it to your 7th graders, to your 6th graders and your 5th graders. Kids love this book, and it's a beautiful way of talking about prepositional phrases. And also, just looking at some more ideas here, the felt boards. It's something that's probably a little more common in younger grades, but I would say, toss it out the window. I don't know one fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth grader who wouldn't love just to go back and visit their childhood a little bit, just to remember, wow, I remember in kindergarten we did felt boards. I hope that those still exist. I know technology has done a lot of this for us, and we don't necessarily have to do the hands-on, but my friends, the hands-on stuff, it never gets old. The brain really does love hands-on activity. And so if you have your vocabulary all spelled out on colored, hopefully color-coded felt, that it's very clear, very bold. You've got all of these words that you can create sentences from, and they can put those on that felt board. And then when you start to manipulate sentences and you want them to start playing around with word positions and how to change meaning of sentences, a felt board is so basic, so simple, and yet it's brand new for a lot of learners, especially when they've been doing it the same way over and over and over again. And of course, this last one, I think it's really great. It's called macaroni prep phrases. Let's look at a picture of what this can be. So you don't have to read all this text here, but do notice the headings. You can do pasta subjects and predicates to help you with inverted order sentences. So if you're a Shurley teacher and you understand a little bit about when you are going through the Q&A flow and you get really close to the bottom of the script and you're doing the skill check, and then we ask this question, is this sentence in a natural or inverted order? And that's actually one of my favorite places in the Q&A flow, because I would never have thought to teach it like that in the first place. So it's already pretty novel, as we've said before, to do a Q&A flow. But what's really exciting is now you can actually give them a manipulative like the elbow macaroni, and we can have them find prepositional phrases, and we can use the spaghetti to help divide sentences up and also to underline the complete subject and the complete predicate. There are some other things you could do. You could place a rubber band, if you wanted to, over the simple subject and the simple predicate. A small rubber band would fit on top of that. The only thing you have to be aware of is that because of the size of macaroni, you can't use a regular size sentence. So you do have to do a little blow up time on the copy machine. And if you don't have a copier that does that, well, you know how to do that. You're tech wizards and you can figure this out. But just make the sentence big enough and the words big enough so that the macaroni fits on it. Otherwise, it's like doesn't work. Anyway, also look at this. To identify the prepositional phrases, this is really important because one of the things you want to be able to do is get kids to slow down their thinking. When we teach this way, and I love it that kids become experts at grammar. Fantastic. However, once that boredom sets in, you have to change it up, and you do that through novelty. And the beauty of novelty is it makes the brain go, hey, what? And then it slows down the thinking. They start paying more attention again. It's like how something crosses your field of vision. And, everything else is just same old, and then all of a sudden something very odd flies by. I see this happen with very young kids. I see this happen with very old people. Something new and interesting is going to catch their attention. Well, let's capitalize upon it. Let's just not hope it's going to happen accidentally, because it probably won't. All right, I'm sorry, I get excited. Humu humu nuku nuku apua. If you're not paying attention, pay attention. Okay.
We are so now.
Okay. Right. Does anybody know what this is? Has anybody? Now you cannot Google this right now. No. Just if you've never heard of this fish, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about it, and you'll remember it. I promise. This fish is native to Hawaii and a few other tropical areas. That's one of the things to know. It's a type of trigger fish. And if you're a mental person like I am, and that's not always in the most positive light of the word, let's just say that I have a lot of triggers. and it's funny because when I was looking at this fish, I thought, oh, yeah, I'm really familiar with triggers. And well, this is a trigger fish. And apparently there are lots of different species of this trigger fish. But what's really cool about it is the meaning of its name. And the meaning of its name, humu humu nuku nuku apua, is simply this. It's a type of trigger fish with a pig's snout that makes a grunting noise when you catch it. And that's what its name means. Isn't that something? That's what its name means. I think it's a really cool. I don't know if you're Hawaiian and you do this. Bravo! I just think this is so awesome. Anyway, that's enough information about the huma huma nuku nuku apua. And in just a little bit, I'm going to teach you how to say it. Okay, let's look at the next thing we're going to do.
So I'll lead us into this. So the sentence blueprints. This is another feature that aligns and spins off from the question and answer flow. So we have a systematic way to analyze the role in each word of the sentence. That's what the Q&A flow does. But now with sentence blueprints, what we're going to do is to take the reverse approach, and now we're going to ask students to create their own sentences. But you can imagine what that is like. I'm sure we've all asked our students, okay, here's a blank sheet of paper. Write me a sentence about this mouse pad, all right? Write a sentence about this mouse pad. And then they're like, okay, that's not novel enough for me. I need something more, okay? So we're gonna take this, we're gonna turn the question and answer flow, and I say we're gonna flip it. We're going to flip-flop it, and we're going to turn it inside out, okay? So next slide, please. And here's what it is. And so what we do with the question and answer flow, and this is, notice you can see all the different colors in here. Let's say we color-coded this. You could even color code the different parts of speech that we didn't do it. We've stuck to a more simplistic color coding here, where all of the labels, and this is how we approach the question or the revised sentence or sentence blueprints, is we provide the labels for the students, and then we ask them to create an original sentence based off of what the labels are telling them to create. David mentioned it before. We always start with the core of the sentence, which will be the subject, noun, and the verb of the sentence. From there, after we have that in this pattern that we're going to follow, then we can add other parts of speech to it. And so as you can see, the SN stands for subject, noun. In the original sentence, the moon is the subject. The verb is on the next line. The verb for the original sentence is appeared. And then we work our way to the end of the sentence. We pick up some adverbs here, and then we go back to the subject, noun, and work our way to the beginning of the sentence. So our original sentence, that's the second line, says the pretty white moon appeared very early tonight. So when a student comes to us with this activity, this is a fine sentence. There's nothing wrong with that. We've got the core, everything's intact. But when we want to actually, we're going to make this sentence a little more novel. We want to jazz up this sentence and strengthen it. So we're going to revise it. And that's what revising means. It means to strengthen the content of the sentence, of the paragraph, of the writing piece, whatever it is. So we teach different revision strategies. And that's on the fourth line that you can see. You have these abbreviations. So NC stands for no change. WC stands for word change. SYN, synonym. You can see delete down here at the bottom. You can also have the option to ask for an antonym if you want. And so based off of the revision strategies, the student will rewrite and revise the original sentence so that it strengthens the content or it changes it, makes it a little more novel. And now we have a revised sentence that reads, the majestic milky moon drifted silently overhead. Wow, you can see that by just the words that have been used. The majestic milky moon, you know what color it is. It's majestic because you know it's that thing you can't touch but you're so curious about, right? And so, and it drifted silently. It's quiet. It's just up there lingering around in the sky. So there's so many things. You could take this right into a science lesson. That's novel.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's what the practice, the sentence blueprints do. So this is a blueprint. Again, this can also be in digital form. So we have options in our curriculum where this doesn't always have to be written down. It can be projected, and then you can get to that technological learner's style of learning and get them interacting. You can bring students up to the board, and so there's all kinds of different ways that you can approach this specific feature in our curriculum. David, do you want to add anything to this and move on?
I do, because again, as a teacher, one of the things that whether this is good or bad, I don't know, but I'm always thinking about assessment. How do I still make sure my kids are learning? I love that I'm going to bring novelty in, and I want these kids to learn, and I know that I've jazzed up their attention span again, and I've got their focus realigned. But I would encourage you, when you do this, if you're doing this, save these. Make copies of these, of every child, and make sure you've got a portfolio, because this can create an assessment of how well your kids are really delving into each of these processes. And a record, showing parents this at the end of a year or during a conference would be fabulous, because what you can say is, first of all, is, yeah, I teach vocabulary. Yay me. Well, yeah, but look what I'm also teaching them how to do. I'm also teaching them how to pull on that vocabulary. I'm trying to help them retrieve knowledge that they're gaining. And how is that possible? Because they've been retaining it. And this is so important. And even though you would never necessarily give a grade to this, you sure could. And I wouldn't even assign a letter to it. I would simply use that portfolio to say, moms and dads, take a look. I want you to see not just what your child produces, but how they're thinking. That, to me, it's just everything. It really is everything, because if you're teaching them not only how to think and how to learn, but then you're also showing them how to put it out there so it can be assessed. That's the world we live in. That's the world they live in. And we have to be realistic about it. So remember, we're not saying, throw everything out the window and just have fun. Well, yeah, have fun, but and bring in the novelty. But don't forget, you are the instructor and you are the assessor sometimes, and we need to make sure our kids are progressing. So just a thought. Sorry.
I have another thought too on top of that. That's why we love this, because we can keep weaving in and out.
Yes. Yeah.
Novel ideas support each other and support your instruction. So if you think back to that slide that we were just on, the initial jingles, right? The splatter paint that you saw that I was talking about earlier, that was teaching them different parts of speech. Now they have to learn and use the parts of speech along with the specific words that they use as nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, from the word wall, or David's going to talk about some trees here in a minute, as a different idea. but you can see, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, but that novel idea that I did way back when I introduced adjectives is supporting this novel idea, and they're all purposeful. They're intentional. They're not just, and hey, if we can have fun while we're teaching, that's why I love Shurley English, because I always had fun using Shurley English to teach. So it was that novel curriculum that was different than everything else. So it gave me permission to be novel, to bring in more novelty with it and in other subjects as well. But yeah, go for it. Keep moving on.
And I'm not gonna puncture your balloon like you just punctured mine, but I am going to say that Kimberly has some amazing things to show you later, where she just absolutely shines. And so stay tuned. Thank you for being here with us. If you joined us late, I just want to let you know again that you do have the opportunity to interact with us. You can hit the question mark, and there's a little speech bubble at the top of your screen. I think it's probably on the right side, and it has a little question mark in it. If you have a question, we're saying something that you don't understand, or we have something that you want to jump onto, would you please feel free to go ahead and type in your question in that question panel, and then we can address it if you'd like to do that. All right, now that little commercial, back to novelty. Take a look. These are sentences that basically we just talked about when you're doing the sentence blueprints, and you end up with a good original sentence, and then you've done some revising, and then you love your revised sentence at the end. Don't stop there. Now you can do some other cool things. And again, notice we've got some color code going on, but Just look at the original sentence here in the top rectangle. Cats prowled hungrily around today. Now, notice that the next sentence basically the same thing, but yesterday, the adverb here at the end of the first sentence, I'm going to move it. So we call this a mover and shaker sentence, and this is in some of our materials that some of you are probably familiar with. And all we did is we took that adverb, moved it to the front of the sentence, and then, of course, we got an opportunity to do some internal punctuation. And now, Kimberly, you probably know exactly what kind of sentence this is now. It's not a regular sentence anymore. It is
inverted.
It's inverted. And I love, first of all, teaching kids that this is an inverted sentence. Why? Well, because now we have a predicate piece in the subject part of the sentence. What? You can do that? Yes, we do it all the time. But now they're actually going to get a chance to see it, and we're going to show them how to do it. Now, the goal will be, once they understand how to do it, then they start to apply it in their own writing. And now you can hold them accountable for them making those attempts. Something I used to do, even with the youngest kids and some of the middle-aged kids, around 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, I would give them a bonus point. And I would just say, hey, by the way, after we would do like a spelling test, or I didn't really do a traditional spelling test, but they had a set of we call it rotating vocabulary, and they were learning how to spell these words along the way. But we also have a dictation sentence, and then I would give them bonus points if they could figure out a way to manipulate the same sentence I gave them, that I dictated to them, and then they changed it up. They brought their own novelty into it. And boy, you talk about exciting. These kids are like, I won 117 points out of 100 because I can do this thing. It's like, that's right, you sure can. And now you can always do it, and I can hold you accountable to it. Assessment. And then the 2 stray cats prowled hungrily around yesterday. Okay, same kind of idea, but notice what's happening in this moved and shaken sentence here. Just see what happened. Everybody looking? I can't really hold you accountable. You can be filing your nails. You can be slurping a smoothie. But if you're really doing what I asked you to do, did you see that we had prowled hungrily around in the first sentence? Now look what's going on. We changed that form of the word prowled, the verb, into prowling. Now it's progressive, right? It's continuing, it's ongoing, it has the ing ending. And hungrily the same, around the same. Yesterday, still the same, but look where it's been placed. Now we set it off with a comma, and then we have the 2 stray cats hunted. Now, could we have been satisfied with the first sentence? Sure, we could. But why? Why not show kids the thought process behind revision? Because we know that as kids become writers, as they move into the writing process, and I think that you really need to give that a lot of time. When you're doing that, let's capitalize upon the time that you're spending with this, and show kids that when you're going to do a revision step, you cannot assume they know what you mean. So you show them something that's novel, but you also show them something that's really cool in writing, and then you start to show them how to do that a lot in their writing, and eventually that becomes one of their tools in their tool belt. Mm-hmm. All right, next slide. All right, so the sentence that we already talked about, the majestic milky moon drifted silently overhead. What I'd like for you all to do now, if you would, I want you to use your question button, and we'll just take a couple of minutes. We won't do a whole lot of talking during this time. I would like for you to pay attention to the revised sentence. It's the one that has the Texas orange color on it. And I would like for you to figure out, is there a novel way to restate that sentence so that it maybe moves some words around a little bit, doesn't lose meaning. In fact, it enhances meaning. And then would you please put that in the question box? And I'll let you do that for a few minutes. And then, Kimberly, is there something that you and I can chat about while they're thinking?
Oh, sure.
Let's think about that. All right, I'm waiting. You didn't think you were going to get by just sitting passively, listening. You have to do something, and this is what I want you to do. So feel free to try this. Sounds like I got a pressure. Sorry, I won't pressure you.
You know, David, when I was teaching, I used to be I taught mainly 4th and 5th grade. But what I used to do is time was always an issue, you know.
Oh, yes.
You have your blocks. You've only got this, and I've got a language arts block, but I've got to really focus on reading here. And it always felt like grammar and writing it just got squeezed in there, you know. It didn't really get its own time to really sit with. So I would put my sentence blueprints. Back in the day, we didn't have this nice formatting, right? We wrote it. We wrote it on a transparency, an overhead projector, or the chalkboard. So I just made my own small whiteboard, and I'd write the labels up above, and it became a morning routine for my students. And so that was novel because I took it out of the curriculum.
Sure.
And I cut in half sheets of paper, put it in a little basket where the paper just fit perfectly in there. And then they were responsible for going to grab their paper and get that sentence written before the 9 a.m. bell rang. So it gave them responsibility to get some morning routines done before the 9 a.m. bell. And then I could take a quick look at those to see how they've done, and then I could give them back. And so we had this ongoing little assignment during the day that they had to be quick at. So yeah, that's just another novel way. That's how I use it in my classroom.
Oh, that's great. And I hope everybody was listening to that, but you may not have been able to because we do have a participant here. Thank you so much, Laurie. How about this? Drifting silently overhead was the majestic Milky Moon. I love that. Now, she did a change up of the verb, and I like that. And she flipped the whole thing around, but it still sounds really poetic, and that was your thinking, Laurie. And that's what I think is so important, because when kids start to feel empowered to manipulate words in their own writing, you've crossed a threshold, and that threshold is often really hard for a lot of kids. They don't feel that smart. They don't think that capably they can do the things that you're asking them to do, and then you just prove them wrong. You said, no, you're very capable. You can do it very capably. And not only that, you can do it beautifully. You can do it artistically. Well done, Laurie. And if anybody else has anything else to say about that, you go ahead. Just keep typing on in there. But let's go ahead and continue with our conversation, Kimberly, because our time is running out. Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit. It still fits in the same line of dealing with Q&A flows in Shurley. And again, even if you don't teach Shurley English, you can do this. All we're talking about with human sentences is you want kids to have a sign that has the parts of speech label on it, and on that same card or sign is a word that is that part of speech. And then instead of doing the grid that we sometimes do with our sentence blueprints, you literally have the kids stand up in front of your classroom. And I know that this can be a little uncomfortable for some kids, so please be mindful of that. Not every child needs to be up in front of the room all the time doing things, because that doesn't work for some learners. However, for those that will and can do it, you literally have the kids make the move physically. And as far as multisensory learning goes and multisensory instruction goes, you can't do better than this, because for some kids, their visual memory is really acute. And they will remember, even if they couldn't remember what they were doing on paper, they'll remember this. And again, that's the beauty of novelty. It gets the brain's attention. Again, focus is renewed, excitement and creativity is stirred up, and that's what we want. Look at the next idea here, the parts of speech trees. And this is what Kimberly was referring to earlier. I'm like this only because I couldn't teach if I couldn't do these kinds of things. So I would go get carpet rolls. They're probably 10 feet long sometimes, 12 feet long, and I went to various stores that sell carpeting, and I'd say, hey, do you have any of those empty rolls? And of course they're like, sure we do, you're a nut, but here, take them. And I would take those and I'd turn them into palm trees or different kinds of trees and literally set them up in my classroom, and they become parts of speech tree. So one tree is where you're going to hang all your nouns. Did you hear what I said? You're going to hang all your nouns. And so every time you're doing work with sentences, then you don't have to do it with every sentence, but then take a moment to say, you know what? Our noun tree looks a little skippy. We need some fruit. Let's get some nouns up there. And you do the same thing with verbs. You do the same thing with adverbs and adjectives and prepositions. And I'm telling you, not only is it fun, it's pretty. I mean, unless you're not terribly artistic. In that case, it's like, well, okay, it doesn't look so great, but the kids are going to remember it. It's just important. And it's just another way to upgrade the traditional word wall. Next slide. Yeah. Now, this is something I love. We teach in Shurley English that there really is kind of a formula to recognize how you combine sentences. And there's a lot of work we do in Shurley when you get to this point in the curriculum. And we're talking about how to combine sentences appropriately. And I will tell you folks that if you can get your kids to understand the three main ways that we connect simple sentences together to make compound and complex sentences, oh my goodness, you have fixed some of the worst problems we have ever had with kid writers in punctuation and in word arrangement, the use of really sensible vocabulary that imparts your thinking as a writer into the reader's mind. And so this is something that you can just create this, and it's not that difficult. You can use tagboard, cutting into sentence strips. You can buy sentence strips already pre-cut, and then you write in, using color coding, write in sentences that are simple sentences. And then, yes, we were going to have to get through this pretty quick. I notice our time is really dripping away. But I will say that if you can turn something that's a system that becomes more manipulative, this can be put together with Velcro dots, and you literally show kids how to take the correct internal punctuation and use the comma correctly and the conjunction. You use the semicolon, which that's covered up a little bit by the arrow here on this picture, but that very first one, it might just be something important that the kids are not going to grasp unless you do it this way. If you don't do it this way, some kids just don't get it. Look at the last one. I love this. And I still use this rapidly. No, not rapidly. I use this a lot. And one of the things that's important, because we do have a lot of kids, especially in the upper grades, that they're probably working with text messaging. I think it would be brilliant to go ahead and try to get kids to now exercise their use of this correct internal punctuation and purposely how to write simple sentences and turn them into compound sentences and complex sentences with the correct conjunctions and the punctuation marks. But you start here, and you didn't really start here, because if you're teaching Shurley, you started a long time ago, and then you repeated it and repeated it and repeated it and practiced. Okay, next slide.
Okay.
And skills.
So we're moving along this making the connection wheel, and now we're going to talk about skills. So skills are interwoven throughout all of these features. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to show you now I made this, and I had a great time making it. But what I did is, and I am one of those teachers that's notorious for creating centers and stations, and I love that. I love to see the students interacting. I love to see that their brains firing up and working through problems and finding solutions and working together as a team. So what this word study is, I take a vocabulary word that came straight out of the book. I had the definition listed there. You can see I bought those sentence strips. That's what David was talking about. Synonyms and antonyms. So what I did is I combined what we were teaching for vocabulary, and then I added analogy and the relationship. That's also in the book. And then I incorporated the sentence blueprints down there. You can see the original sentence and the revised sentence. But I put on the, you've got your traditional sticky note. I have the little ones. You can see those are tiny. And then you can start peeling off the sticky notes.
Oh, yeah.
And this could be your morning routine. Okay.
Sure.
And then over there, there's a pocket. It's a parts of speech pocket. and it's asking, I think, what
part of speech is today's word?
Yeah. So what part of speech is that vocabulary word? Then we have another activity, it's supportive for word choice and vocabulary. It's called power words. So if you can take that word, you've also got synonyms, antonyms, analogies here, then you can create a list of other words that are associated with that word. And can you imagine the word bank that you're creating in here? Because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is build this word bank, because Shurley English is a writing curriculum. And we're in the business of creating competent, confident communicators.
Yes.
And this is only part of it. And so this was a novel idea for me. And if I'm not excited about it, they're probably not going to be excited about it. And it's all about your delivery. So as I'm working through this, I want you to think about, how have you upgraded your delivery? And it doesn't have to be in regards to Shurley English. It could be in regards to math, social studies, something that you teach that's not so exciting to teach. I remember having to teach simple machines. How do you upgrade simple machines? I had a blast creating centers. So we won't get into that. Synonyms and antonyms. We ask that they create a booklet, which is fine. That's still a lot of writing, but you add a little bit of novelty to this. Look, and this is another bulletin board activity, but it's interactive here. This is a See How We've Grown bulletin board. So you can use the synonyms and put the synonym, the word, in the circle, and then the petals become all of the other words that are synonyms to that word. So you're constantly building the word bank to help with word choice, okay? And vocabulary. So we want them to have an expanded vocabulary bank so that they can express their thoughts and ideas for any purpose, any genre in writing. And they've got to have the words to do it, though. So if we go to the next,
beautiful.
It dresses up. It dresses up your room too. Now we get into writing. All right, we can take everything that we've learned. You can start combining these features and creating novel ideas like I've done. So here's one thing that I'd love to do: have a writing inspiration station. So this is one of those stations. When you hand a student a blank sheet of white paper and ask them to write, I don't know about you, but I know I go into a little bit of anxiety sometimes. I remember that. So what you can do is, as you're working through the writing process, or if you're working through the revising and editing stages in our writing process and what Shurley English incorporates, we do peer revisions, peer editing, all of that. So this is a perfect little safe space that's set aside in a corner, in a place in your classroom where maybe you have a little light. This teacher has a gumball machine or something in there. You dress it up so it's special and it's different. And not everybody gets to go there yet, but everybody will get to go there and experience the Writing Inspiration Station. Sometimes maybe you have to have headphones there because to drown out any distractions. So this can be a really cool and special place to go to get inspired for your next writing assignment. Then the next bulletin board is one of my favorites. And yes, I did create this. And I'm not in the classroom anymore, and I still created this bulletin board. That's so much fun. I was thinking,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I was looking at our time, and we are out of time. And I'm thinking that we still have like a lot of things we wanted to talk about. I think maybe what we can do is maybe have a part 2 of this. Maybe there's time for us to work that into our schedule. And if any of you, if you want to let me know by if you'll hit that question box, if you'd be open to having a part 2 of this webinar, punch it in there real fast. Just say yes or no or whatever. If you do that, yes, I have one person. Well, one person wants part 2.
One.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll have to say goodbye for this afternoon, but and this would be a great place to get started again, Kimberly, if we get a chance to do this, because so much of what you were going to do with the writing, this isn't the same order that we did our original discussions, and so this really it deserves some time and some talk, because I feel like a lot of folks, we're getting very close to that part of the school year where this really does become a problem. It's hard to keep the kids focused and getting their attention again, and the things you have here are too valuable not to have a chance to talk about. So I will just say, everybody, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today, and we appreciate your participation, and we really do hope that maybe on another time you'll join us and we can get some more ideas from what you're doing between now and then of how you're introducing novelty into your, well, whatever instruction you're doing. But especially if you're a Shurley teacher, we'd love to hear about that.
Yes, thank you very much. And make that be your challenge for the month, is how are you going to create novelty in your classroom?
And everybody, you have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.